This show,
So whoa,
this show is
let's
not
get
to
to the
defend
facts.
George Bush or anybody
But
else.
no, let's get to the facts. We had a Clinton administration, and I wasn't a big fan of the Clinton administration, so I'm not one of these people that, you know, was there with that. But at least they raised revenue and were closing the deficit. They were running surpluses the final
That's correct.
4 years of the Clinton
But
administration.
that was not the Clinton administration. It was the Republican-controlled Congress that forced spending cuts,
Well, Clinton,
regardless
okay,
of what
Clinton
the
was
president.
He got
on
credit
that.
for
And
it. It was
they,
his time.
they agreed, and by the way, the Republican Congress acted responsibly by working with the Clinton administration to put together budgets that were not only balanced but ran a surplus. That's the right way to go. We support that. That's exactly what you should do. What we haven't had in 8 years of Bush was any sense of responsibility with the ledger. I mean, none. So now Obama comes in. He's got the worst recession since the Great Depression. He's got mounting failures, and he's confronted with what does federal government do short-term and long-term to get the fiscal house in order. And while I don't agree with everything he's done, he is raising tax revenue, he's maintaining spending during a recession, and he's trying to limit the involvement. So I think overall his approach is right. I would do more on the revenue side. I would do a little less on the spending side. But
you
overall,
support the Paul Krugman argument that we should inject more money into the economy.
In the short term, yes.
In the short term, through borrowing or any other means.
not even Krugman, Mark Zandi, the chief economist at Moody's.com, and he was, by the way, the principal economic advisor to John McCain.
I want to get Rolf, the other Rolf, into this conversation. What do you think about the argument that Mr. Martyre has put forward here, that we need to continue to have this massive expenditure through borrowing into the public sector?
I think that even
expansion?
Milton Friedman had said that the tightening up of the money supply contributed to the extension of the depression, and so there are economic talking heads that do agree with that. You know, what we're talking about is the spending level. When you look at the stimulus package that was recently approved, the pattern of just pork is nothing new. This is the same thing that appeared in the energy bill that was passed during the Bush administration and the farm bill that was passed in the Bush administration. And so you see that the pattern has not changed. This type of spending is inflationary, and in the end it does not improve the economy because it doesn't create sustainable jobs. The Obama administration and its belief that it can create make-work jobs, and that's going to make a difference in the long run. FDR, it did not work. It was really the advent of the war. It was the increase in money supply when the gold fled Europe because of the instability and came over and invested in the United States. So it was the wealth that was accrued as a result of those factors rather than the make-work jobs of FDR that really brought us out of the Depression.
Well, I misspoke earlier when I said Bush was voted out of office. He left the office with some of the lowest, if not the lowest, approval of any president, some 23% when he left the office at the end of his second term. But the point that I wanted to say, again, going back to the skunk analogy, is that Obama came in, advocating all of these policies that were anti-Bush, and Bush, the second, increased borrowing more during his two terms from 2000 to 2008 than all the other presidents before him combined. But here comes Obama and now increases borrowing and spending, more than Bush and everybody else combined before him. So we're going now on borrowing spree on steroids that is causing the Chinese communists some concern as far as their security of their debt in the United States.
And Commissioner, to be very clear, we don't support massive amounts of debt to fund public services.
But how else are
That's
you going
not
to
the
do
way
that
you go.
when we are a debtor nation already?
You need progressive tax increases at the federal level, just like at the state level. You need tax relief at the bottom and middle. And you need
You've already got tax relief at the bottom or middle. The top 5% of taxpayers are paying 40–50% of all the total tax aggregate.
And as a percentage of income, they have a lower tax burden. And that's how you do tax burden. Is
But
as
the
a percentage
majority
of, income.
of people under
One at a time, gentlemen, one at a time.
If you earn $1 million a year and you pay $10,000 in taxes, that's a minimal burden. If you earn $1,000 a year and you pay $200, that's a big burden. And so the bottom line is you got to do it as a percentage of income because you got to see what it means for somebody's ability to cover their needs, to have disposable
income. The administration is
income.
raising capital gains and estate taxes and letting the Bush tax cuts expire. That is not a remedy for economic growth in this country, and if you understand capitalism, you'll have to concede that those policies of the Obama administration are not going to work.
Well, they failed utterly during the Bush administration.
Gentlemen, we need to wrap it up here. We only have about 4 minutes left, and I want to bring it back to the local level. And If you look at the city of Chicago budget for 2009, they balanced it through reliance on the stimulus money. You know, they're all expecting stimulus money coming. The county budget, which I voted against because it was built on smoke and mirrors, projected that we would get $20 million in stimulus money, and they created a new line item in the budget and plugged the county budget expecting $20 million in federal stimulus money. The state is banking on the federal stimulus money. The public schools are banking on the federal stimulus money. The CTA is banking on the stimulus money. The state of Illinois itself, and capital projects, you know, are looking at, to a large degree, on the federal stimulus money. Where is this money going to come from? I think, Ralph Connor, you answered this appropriately earlier when you said we're going to have to spend money. It's going to bring the value of currency, dollar currency down. It's going to make us less competitive internationally. And I mean, you know, if you look at the Japan model, clearly they couldn't stimulate their economy enough to get out of their economic doldrums in the 90s. I think here, and this is my personal opinion, that this is going to result ultimately in kind of you know, pre-World War II, 1930s style hyperinflation that happened in Germany, and in other places where they have just printed money. And Zimbabwe is looking at us sympathetically, saying their situation is better almost when you look at it, you know, and compare it to some of the European countries or even the fiscal problems here. So, looking at this international situation and our lack of competitive advantage and our desire now apparently at the grand level to print money, you know, at $1 trillion a day, we heard from the Treasury the other day, and inject it into the economy, how is that going to long-term affect the local government's ability to function and to provide the kind of services that we're used to here? Quickly.
Well, I don't think that it's really logical for local government to be that dependent upon the federal government. I think it sets a bad precedent, and I think that there's no way you can guarantee those funds are going to be there with all the competition. So I think it's wrong-headed, and it's just passing the buck
Bad
and
policy.
then blaming. What you're doing is basically blaming your Congress people and says, so this is why we had to raise taxes because my Congressperson didn't beat up, you know, and so
bad
this
policy in your opinion.
It's bad policy.
What about you?
You know, to the extent you get one-time revenue and you build it into your operating base, you've just done a bad thing. And your operating base is your everyday services, and so in Cook County it would be things like health care and police, juvie, those kinds of things. If you get one-time money and you use it to retire your own one-time debt, or you use it to acquire an asset, then it's responsible. The concern is, and I think Ralph hit it on the head, that's going to be used irresponsibly. That's going to be used to add into the base, cover operating services. You can't do that. That's lying to taxpayers.
I want to thank both Ralphs here. Ralph Connor, the former mayor of Maywood and current legislative director for the Heartland Institute, and of course the other Ralph, Ralph Martyre, who is the executive director of the Center for Tax and Budget Accountability. This has been an illuminating discussion. We can go on here for hours, but I want to thank the viewers, and please look at our website, Cook County, reformcookcounty.com, reformcookcounty.com, 773-735-1700. Thank you for tuning in, and please join us again. Thank you, gentlemen.